Welcome to the Sportsline Podcast right here on CHCH and Parrot TV. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Hey, if you're new, this podcast, this is what we do. We love to take pride in highlighting teams, athletes, sportscasters, and executives who hail from or are making their mark in Southern Ontario. Last summer, an up-and-coming Canadian tennis player emerged and was recognized as WTA Newcomer of the Year. Folks, the door for 2026 is open, and already this Burlington native is walking on through.
Hey guys, it's Vicky Mboko. I just made the final in Adelaide. I'm the first Canadian to make the final here, or I think so. And I'm so excited to be here and see you tomorrow.
Well, the stage is set as two of the youngest players in the top 17 in the world will clash in the final warm-up tournament for that first Grand Slam of the year at the Australian Open. To preview what lies ahead for Vicky Mboko and the rest of the top Canadians is WTA and ATP broadcaster John Horn. John, how are you?
What's going on, Bubs? Thanks for having me.
Hey, this is big news. Mboko, no fall off, as she's hitting the tennis court pretty seriously right off the top of the year. And I would think that at some time she's sort of a contender for a Grand Slam this year.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, she had a good finish to last year. She won a 250 event in Hong Kong to finish the year, played some good tennis there, went to the United Cup, got a couple matches in there, played well there too. And now she's rolling along in Adelaide. So it's a great way for her to get going in this first Grand Slam of the year at the Australian Open that's coming up. You know, some players like to take that extra week off and get ready for the Grand Slams, and other players like to play right up to the start of the Grand Slam. So in this case, she's playing, and she's playing well, and she got a really nice win yesterday in the semifinals, and she's serving really well. She's looking really confident on the court. You know, she's played a few three-setters, probably a few more than she would like. I think 5 of her first 6 matches this year have been three-setters, but you know, she's playing really well, and she's got confidence, and you know, playing in her first WTA 500 event final. She's already played a 250, as I mentioned, in Hong Kong, and she got to Montreal, which was a 1,000 event. So it would be a nice way to start the year and a nice way to get the Australian Open rolling for her as she goes into the first major.
If you look at the Adelaide tournament, wins over Haddad Maia, Kaliskina, Keys, Burrell, who was a qualifier, but she was an Australian, so she would have had good fan support in the semifinal. Those are quality victories.
Yeah, you know what? And that's the thing, is that when she plays, she's not just playing players that are, you know, less than 150 in the world or 100 in the world. She's playing against top players. She beat Madison Keys, who's a top 10 player in the world, her second top 10 win of her career. You know, when she won in Montreal, she beat top quality players. She beat Naomi Osaka in the final. She took out a top 10 player there as well. So, you know, she's playing good tennis against good players. And this is what I always say, Bubs, about players that are young nowadays, is that they're so good. They're so confident. They don't feel the nerves. They can play the top players, and they'll play just as well as they play against a player who's in the 50s or the 100s. They're not fazed by who's on the other side of the court anymore, and that's what I like about Mboko, is that no matter who she's playing against, and she's already played, you know, she hasn't been around for that long, and she's already played top players, and she's played them well. She's not fazed by the fact that Paula Badoza's on the other side of the court, or Naomi Osaka's on the other side of the court, or Haddad Maia, as you mentioned. These are players who are established players, who've been around the tour for a number of years and have played on big stages, and Mboko is already finding out early on that she can play against those players. So that's what I really like about her, is that just the confidence that she has. She's really humble off the court, and she's got a great personality, as you just saw in that clip that you ran. And I think that, you know, the sky's the limit for her, and she could be the next up-and-coming player. There's a lot of good young players on the WTA Tour right now, but she's certainly at the top of the list right now.
Let's go back to 2025, because the building blocks were really there. And I know even myself, you kind of heard a little bit about Vicky Mboko going further back, but injury sort of held her up. But 2025, everything seemed to happen there. She actually doubled back and went back to the ITF level, which is just below the WTA for those that don't know. She wins 5 of 6 tournaments. That 60-14 record is outstanding. Quite a year for her.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for her is, she came onto the scene at the main tour level in Miami, but before she got to Miami, this time last year she was winning ITF titles. She started the year, I think, 22-0, 21-0 to start the year. She was just rolling along. I think she won 4 tournaments in a row, and that was a really nice springboard to get her to the main tour. And I guess the question was going to be, was she going to continue on in the main tour? Was she going to drop down a little bit and play some tournaments leading up? But she got herself into qualifying at the French, and then got into the main draw at Wimbledon, and sort of parlay that into what happened in Montreal, and then the rest is, as we can say, is history. I mean, she's already 17th in the world. That just tells you what a good year she had. Started the year, way, I think, in the 200s, I think, to start the year, and just the way that she's been able to just win matches at both levels and play consistently has got her to 17 in the world. So I think she could easily get into the top 10. I think that, I looked at our Australian Open draw. There is a chance that she could end up playing Sabalenka in the 4th round, which would be a tough matchup, obviously. But again, I mean, Sabalenka has won the tournament. She's an Australian Open champion. I still think Mboko could win that match. It is possible. Sabalenka sometimes struggles against players that she doesn't know as well. And I think Mboko, is a big hitter like Sabalenka is, and I think she can use a little bit of strategy in that match. I think she can use the drop shot. She's not afraid to come to the net. So it's possible that she could get that win, and if she does, then she'd be in the top 10. So I think that she's certainly in a good position. The way things have started for her, the way that she's parlayed last year into the start of the start of this year, and we'll have to wait and see. I mean, she's still, she's young. I mean, when you're that young, you don't want to get too excited too fast. You don't want to do too much too fast. There's often this thing in tennis where if you win, you got to keep winning, and you can't take a step back at all. And you got to sometimes realize that these players are teenagers, some of them, and Mboko falls right into that category. And but I still think that she definitely has a good chance to get into the top 10 in a short period of time. And she'll play all the big events this year because of where her ranking is. And I think that's a big advantage for her as well.
Good coaching with Natalie Tosiak, but when you look at her, John, from a technical standpoint, not so much of all the other stuff that's around, when you look at her game technically, why is she beating some of the top players in the world? What stands out for you when she's on the court?
Well, I think I mentioned that I think that confidence-wise, she's just so confident out there. She doesn't look nervous. She looks like she's been playing on center courts for years, and I think that that's a big thing. Is you see that with a lot of the young players now, is that they just don't have that nerves. It doesn't matter who's standing on the other side of the court. They just play their game the way that they play. Look, she's a big hitter. She's got a really good forehand. She's got a good backhand. She serves well. She's a huge serve. I think she's got 36 aces, I think, in total in 4 matches in Adelaide already. She's not afraid to come to the net. As I said, she'll throw in the drop shots. She moves well. So that's the thing. She's got all these different variables of her game, and I think in tennis these days, especially in the women's game, it's not so much about the big power hitters. I mean, Sabalenka is a power hitter, but a lot of players, and that almost started with Bianca Andreescu a little bit. Ange Jabeur, Sophia Kenin. These are players who can add different things to their game, and I think that younger players now are doing the same. There's some really good young players on the tour. As I mentioned, Iva Jovic is an American 18-year-old. Alex Ayala from the Philippines, the first ever Filipino player to make the tour. They hit a huge ball. They hit. Yeah, that's right. They hit a hard ball, and they both have lots of different game style that they can use against opponents. And Ayala will throw in a drop shot just when you least expect it. I was doing some matches in Auckland last week, and Ayala was playing, and she'll try a drop shot off a service return, and you don't see that often. That's an Ange Jabeur special. So I think it's the confidence and the fact that you can use so many different variables, go into the toolbox and find so many different things. Scout your players that you're playing against, and try and find their weaknesses and change the pace of how the match is going and that sort of thing. So it's impressive the way that she started, and I think she's certainly got the game to possibly win a Grand Slam, and certainly to be in the top 10, as I mentioned.
Whether it be the men's side or the women's side, you've been around the game and the sports for so long, and we've seen players like this at times have these spikes, but sometimes it ends. And I mean, there's been recognition, the key to the city in Burlington, meeting the Prime Minister. There's been so much that has been going on in her young life, John. Here's the thing I have to... how does she continue? As you said, 17th in the world right now, but last year she went from 350 to 18. How does she continue to maintain this steady growth into maybe even being number one when she's getting pulled? As you see a Blue Jays game, there's so much going on in her young life. How does she maintain that focus?
Well, I think that's always the ironically she's throwing a Bo Bichette there. That's kind of funny. After what happened today, signed by the Mets, from what I've been told. But yeah, it's one of the things that tennis players often struggle with, and it's hard. It's understandable that they do struggle with it. It's just the balancing everything on the court and off the court. We saw it with Jeannie Bouchard when she had her run in 2014. We saw it with Bianca Andreescu after she won the U.S. Open, even before she won the U.S. Open. These women are getting pulled left, right, and center to do different events, to be sponsoring different things, promoting different things, photo shoots, showing up at fashion shows, all this kind of thing. It's difficult to balance, and you have to have a solid team around you and the right people around you. And I think that Mboko, she's got a very, very grounded crew that she hangs out with and that she's with. Her parents are involved. They're there. I've heard her father speak, and he seems to be a very down-to-earth guy. And he's got having a regular coach, I think, helps. Having the right people in your corner, using them as advice as to what to do. I think the biggest thing is to not do too much, and it's difficult because sponsors are coming your way, and how about you promote this thing, and let's do a commercial, and let's do a photo shoot, and let's do this, and by the way, you still need to go and practice in the morning for your next tournament. And so it's difficult to balance it. And I think more and more players, I think, now realize, especially in the women's game, that they're getting pulled a lot of different directions, from sponsors to events, and even Tennis Canada will want to do things with Mboko and so forth. So it's a lot for somebody to handle. And I think as long as you've got the right people around you telling you, like, okay, look, don't do too much, take it easy, we can't commit to this much because it's just too difficult. I think it's important, and because if you try and do too much, then tennis almost becomes secondary. And I'm not saying that happened with Andreescu or Bouchard, but sometimes you think that maybe there was a little bit too much going on, and not that their focus wasn't on tennis, but it just took away from maybe some extra practice time that they could have had, or a little bit more focus as to what's ahead, or but it's difficult because there's money that's thrown around as well off the court, and sometimes the money off the court is more than what you're getting on the court. So it's a difficult balance, and you have to do your best you can, and you just got to rely on the people around you, especially when you're at a young age like Mboko is.
As we cruise into the 2026 season, Australian Open just days away, I'm going to throw a couple of Canadians at you. And at number 22 in the WTA, Leylah Fernandez. Where is her game right now? Because now she's been bypassed as Canada's top player.
Yeah, I mean, Fernandez is an interesting watch, because she'll go through runs where she plays very poorly and has a bunch of tournaments in a row where she doesn't play well, and then she'll get on a heater and she'll start playing really well. So, she hasn't had a good start to the year this year. She lost in both Brisbane and Adelaide quite early. She's a seeded player at the Australian Open. Do I think that she can go deep at the Australian Open? No. I just think that she certainly has the game. I just don't know, consistently. Again, that's her biggest problem. I've always said that I wish that she had a better serve. I think her serve serve is one of her weaknesses, as we see a picture of her serving there. I think that she needs to get more power into her serve. Her second serve is not that strong. She double faults quite regularly. That's something that she needs to work on. And again, I think sometimes she'll play matches. You'll watch her and she'll play matches, and she looks down and out in a match, and then she'll come right back and she'll play really well for the rest of the match, but she'll still lose. So I think for her, again, it's a confidence thing. Just she's working on her game. Obviously, she's got her father, who's a big part of her camp, and I just think that sometimes with her that she maybe doesn't have the all-round game that I see from some of the players. Maybe not the hardest hitter. I mean, she still hits it well, but maybe not as hard as some of the players on tour. And, there's a lot of players on the tour who are regular players who play well. And a lot of it has to do with who you get in your draw and who your opponents are. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes she plays really well. Sometimes she doesn't. And sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just, you have a bad day or what have you. She's very fit. She's very good in long matches. She has no problem with the heat at all. I mean, she spends most of her time in Miami, so she's used to the humidity. So that's not an issue either. But you know what? There's oftentimes 96 players or 128 players are all trying to do what you're trying to do, and that's win a title and win a Grand Slam or win a big event. And unfortunately for her, it just hasn't come as easily as maybe she would have liked. And again, like, you get all that attention from getting to a U.S. Open final, and then it's okay. Well, what are you going to do for me lately? And again, she's won a couple smaller tour events, but still hasn't found it in the bigger events. And we'll see how she does this year. If she continues to stay seated, that'll help her to get some easier matches early in the big tournaments. But I'd like to see her turn a game around, because she's a great personality. She's a really nice woman, really nice to talk to. She's got a lot to say, and I'd like to see her do well. But it's been a bit of a struggle.
Real quick here, outside of Layla and Mboko, who's the Canadian woman we should be watching out for? Give me one.
Oh boy, the Canadian woman we should be watching for. Well, I mean, Maria Stakusic is the one of the younger players who's in the top 150. She qualified for the Australian Open, so she'll be in the Australian Open. She had that run at the Billie Jean King Cup when Canada won the Billie Jean King Cup a couple years ago, where she was winning matches against good players and was a big part of that team winning. But she's fallen off a little bit. She's had some injuries too, but it was good to see her get through qualifying. So she's into the main draw, which is nice. Where is her game going to go? I mean, I think it's really up to how healthy she stays and how she does in some of these tournaments. The toughest part is about being a player who's in the, say, between 100 and 160, 175 in the world, is just, when you get into tournaments, is that first of all, if you're going through qualifying just to get to the Australian Open, you got to win 3 qualifying matches just to get into the main draw. So she's already had to play 3 times. Now she's in the main draw, and then you got to go through the main draw to have success. And that's not always easy to play good players early on in tournaments, because you're a qualifier, and you end up having to play the better players early on, and it's difficult. You need to get an upset win just to continue on. So I think that she would be the player that sort of stands out to me, that is of the young Canadian women that are out there. There are a couple of others that are sort of up and comers, so to speak. But I think Canadian tennis, Bubs, for the most part, is in a pretty good place right now. I mean, we lost Milos Raonic just recently. We didn't lose him, but his career is over. And we lost Genie Bouchard and Vasily Pospisil, and those 3 players have been kind of the staples, kind of the leaders, so to speak, in singles play for Canadian tennis. And now that they're gone, it's kind of like when we talk about Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal. Now that they're gone, what's going to happen after that? I think Canadian tennis is in good hands. I mean, Felix is a top 10 player. Shapovalov's been a little bit up and down, but but he's still top 25 player. Gabriel Diallo is a good player. Liam Draxel, who got through qualifying, is in the Australian Open. He's a good player too. And then we talked about Bianca Andreescu still around, and Mboko and Fernandez and Stakusic. So there's a lot of good players. We weren't 10 years ago. We weren't talking about all these different players. We were talking about really Milos Raonic and who maybe this Felix guy could be something, or maybe the Shapovalov guy could be something. And have you heard about Andreescu? Carson Branstein's another woman who's Canadian, born in the U.S. but is Canadian citizen. She's a good player too. So the Canadian tennis is in a good place, singles and doubles, and I think that's good for tennis, and I think Tennis Canada is happy about it. It's good for their tournaments as well, but it keeps Canadian eyes on tennis, and that's what we need to see.
I'm glad you brought up a couple of the men. Let's quickly go through a couple of them, and obviously these are names that everyone knows. Felix Auger-Aliassime up to number 7 in the world. 3 titles last year, but still kind of inconsistent with that 50 and 24 record. Your thought on where he can grow in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I think Felix had a pretty good year last year. He's struggled in Grand Slams. I mean, he did get to the semis last year at the U.S. Open, which I think was a big step. Lost to Sinner, but I think that was a big step for him because he hadn't played very well in semis. He lost twice to Daniil Medvedev, who he could possibly play in the 4th round here at the Australian Open. He's lost to him twice at the Australian Open. He's had some early exits at the other slams. So I mean, he's had runs where he's played really well, and he's had good tournaments during the regular year, and then he gets to the slams and he just bottoms out early. So, which is a bit surprising because it's not as if, again, one of the fittest guys out there, great player, smart player, tactical player, good serve, and you sit there and you wonder, you go, how can he lose? I mean, I know it's 3 out of 5 instead of 2 out of 3, but he plays well during the year and then just gets the slams, and it's just, it's a struggle. So, I think, for him finishing the year the way that he did last year, being a top 10 player again, he's the 7th seed at the Australian Open. His draw is not super easy, I would say. I mean, he's got possibly one of the young players on the tour, Laurentien, in the 3rd round, potentially, then Medvedev in the 4th round, who's already won a title. He won in Brisbane last week. So that's not going to be an easy match for him. But I mean, you talk to anybody who follows tennis regularly, and everybody likes the Felix game. Everybody likes the way that the way his personality is on court. He's not a complainer. He's not a big emotion guy. He just goes out there and takes care of business. And I think it'd be nice to see him have some success. So, do I think he's going to win a Grand Slam this year? I'm 50-50 on that. Maybe even like 60-40, no. But if there's a player on the men's side who's going to do it, it's going to be him. And I think at some point in time, if he gets, I mean, the biggest problem is you got Alcaraz and Sinner. That's the big problem, is that those two guys are dominating everything right now. And, you're going to have to wait for one of those guys to have a hiccup in the early rounds and get bounced out, or play the match of your life to beat those two. So that's the biggest problem, the biggest thing that's going to hamper Felix winning a slam.
Where's Shapo right now? 26 and 22. That's not a great record for 2025. And I think there was a marriage, and I know there was some slight injury. Where is he right now? Ranked number 23 in the world, but is it the same old, like Dennis, that he's just sometimes too emotional?
Well, you're asking where he is. He's in Melbourne getting ready for the Australian Open. But yeah, I mean, I think that Shapo's game style. Look, I mean, he's the complete opposite of Felix when you watch him play. Felix, goes out there. He's sort of got a tactical game plan. He thinks things through a little bit. Sometimes I think Shapovalov doesn't think things through enough, and he's got a very, I look at his game almost in the same way that when you watch Sabalenka play. It's sort of go broke or go home kind of thing, and it works for Sabalenka, but it hasn't always worked for Shapovalov. There are times where I think that he could really, stay in points a little bit longer, stay in rallies a bit longer, and then pick away and find a spot to try and hit a backhand winner, as opposed to just going for it on a second serve or a first serve every single time, and not being maybe as decisive with his shot making as he potentially could. But that's his game style. That's how it's always been. It's been go broke or go home, and it's worked for him a little bit. He had some success last year at the start of the year. I believe he won Dallas at the start of the year. Had some good wins there too, but again, it's just a little bit disappointing sometimes when you see the potential and you see what he can do. And again, he'll have some great matches, and then he'll have some real stinkers. And that's the frustrating part, is that the consistency with him is just not there. And he's certainly fun to watch. I know everybody, when you put Shapovalov on the order of play for the day and people see where he's playing, the crowds are packed because they like to see that. They like to look. If you're a casual tennis fan, you want to see the jumping backhand one-handed. The one-handed backhand automatically gets people's attention. The jumping one-handed backhand, the backhand down the line, the big serve. I remember Shapo when he had the long hair and the backwards hat. There's something about being a little bit anti Tennessee, it's not the all whites, the collared shirt kind of look. It's that look right there is what we kind of remember and we think of with Shapovalov. So, whether the hat's forward or backwards, I don't think it really matters in terms of he's just the same player that he always has been. And, whether he changes that game style, I'm not sure. He hasn't changed it in the years that he's been on tour now. He's been on tour for a number of years now. But it's the consistency with him, which is kind of the frustrating part. And I think it's kind of held him back a bit.
I'm going to throw this out to you, and this is kind of a crazy thought, and I know it's ridiculous to say this, but I will say it to you. You know me. If I was Milos Raonic and I talked to my parents, his parents, obviously, it'd be like, why did you have me when you had me? Because I always thought Milos, with this great serve, a great player, yet he had to be playing tennis in the same time as Nadal, as Federer, and Djokovic, these guys in their prime, which to me seems almost, as we talk about Alcaraz right now, like it's just a tough time to be around and playing tennis and win tournaments. And now he's retired.
Yeah, it's kind of unfair, isn't it? I think a number of players have actually said that it's been kind of unfair. Even Andy Roddick said that, why did I have to play tennis when Federer was at the top of his game? And you look at what Andy Murray did and how good a player he was, and he's half the time he doesn't even get a sniff. Stan Wawrinka, he's won Grand Slams and he's still playing. He's retiring after this year, but he was in that era too, and Raonic struggled against those three guys in his career. I think he was 0-11 against Djokovic. I think he only won a couple times against Federer, which is still nothing to hang your head about. But you know what? Look, I was disappointed that Raonic called it a career, but I'm not surprised. I thought actually he was going to call it a career a couple of years earlier. I'm glad that he was able to go out when he wanted to go out. I wish that he didn't have as many injuries that he had. That's the unfortunate part about Raonic. It's great that he'll be remembered probably for having one of the best serves ever in the game. His serve was outstandanding. But unfortunately, what's going to hamper what you're going to talk about is when you look back at Milos Raonic and you go, what a great player. He was a top 5 player in the world. He got to number 3 in the world at one point. Got to a Wimbledon final in 2016. Great player, great personality, quiet personality, but a good personality off the court. Had a lot of things. A big basketball fan, and when you sat down with him, he was really insightful about everything. And but unfortunately, you're going to think of Milos Raonic. The first thing that's going to you're going to come away with is injuries, and he had a ton of injuries over his career. It was, top to bottom, his lower body especially took a massive beating. He had so many injuries with his lower body, and he was a tall player. And he didn't. He moved okay around the court. Maybe not great for his size. I thought he moved reasonably well, but he used that serve to his advantage, and it got him a lot of free points and won him a lot of matches. A lot of tie breaks he played over his career, and he won 8 titles in total. But it was disappointing that he got so injured. And I was there for his final ever match, which was at the French Open, at in Paris at the Olympics in 2024. And that was his final match. And it was kind of, I was watching him and I was thinking, I wonder if this is it. The question was he going to play in Canada, and would that be his final match? And he didn't, because he was hurt again. He played that final match in Paris at the Olympics, lost in the first round, playing on clay, which was a surface he never had success on. And he had his knee taped up. And I kind of thought, like, wow, if this is it, he's going out on a surface that he really doesn't like, with his knee taped up. It's kind of ironic. And that turned out to be his last match. And it's unfortunate that he never got to play his final match at home. I'm sure Tennis Canada will do some big, ceremony for him this summer. I would expect to, and I would hope that does happen. But it kind of was all in a nutshell that, even in his last match, his knee was taped up and he wasn't moving that great because he was hurt again. And that's from not even playing a lot of tennis. So I'm glad that he had the career that he did. And he was certainly a trailblazer for Canadian men's tennis. A lot of players looked up to him. I know he got to play Davis Cup quite a bit, and he, did well at the slams. As we mentioned, he got to the Wimbledon final. But it sucks that he had all those injuries. I felt really bad for him when there were a couple times where I spoke to him and he was just like, I'm so tired of, having to go through all these injuries. And so you felt for the guy, but I'm glad that he's able to, look back and call it a career and have a lot of success. So right now he goes down as to me, the most successful men's tennis player in singles for sure. Now he's got a wife, and he's had a baby recently, and he's settled down. And I think he's a really smart guy too. He's big into art. He's big into business. So he'll do very well now that tennis is done. But kind of sad to see him go. But at some point in time, you knew it was gonna happen. I actually thought it might happen a couple years earlier.
Well, John, this has been awesome, and you're right. But at the very end, I still think Reno's made a lot of money. So hopefully there is some. He did all right. He did all right financially. Hey, you've certainly done all right. Just giving us the rundown for 2026. Obviously, in these parts, we're really, really excited for Vicky Mboko and where she can go, and hopefully we can hook up maybe sometime coming into the French or Wimbledon, and which obviously will be a big thing for Vicky, and of course the rest of the Canadians. So thanks for giving us the lowdown. Enjoy Australia, and it's great talking. Where can we find you if we want to get you online, first of all?
We got my website, aroundthehornmedia.com. Twitter or X is @SportsHorn. Instagram, same thing. You'll hear me doing commentary on the WTA. My next tournament is in Austin, Texas. Then I do Indian Wells after that. And then we'll lead into Strasbourg before the French Open. So that's my next bunch of tennis that's coming up. So, look forward to a great year. And by the way, Bob, just adding to your Vicky Mboko in Ontario. So you got Vicky Mboko from Ontario in tennis. Then you've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander now in basketball. Connor McDavid from Ontario. He's lighting it up in hockey. I mean, Ontario is dominating the Canadian sports world right now. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, I'm glad you said two of the three that you said there are right here from this area. And don't forget young Matthew Schaefer. Yeah, the number one over. Right from our hood here. So things are happening in our area.
It's all happening there.
Thanks for joining us, partner.
No problem, Bubs. Always enjoy it.
Take care. Hey, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. And if it's local, it's even sweeter. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline podcast do want to hear from you. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. If you have something to say, please comment. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, I always say thank you so very much. And we'll see you real soon.